All right, hello wine drinking people. Time for more of what I've had to drink yesterday. Always good to see good friend Don Hartford in. And Don is, well, I'd say one of the luckiest guys in the wine business. He married very well. He married into the Jackson family of wines, and he married Jess Jackson's daughter. And, he started this Hartford Court Winery on his own, and the 1994 vintage, I believe, was the first vintage, and I remember the first few releases from this winery. Don came to town, and he did a blind tasting with his single vineyard Pinots versus some Grand Cru Burgundies, and some pretty big names on the table here. Loire was on the table, Domaine de Romanée-Conti, Jaillet, wines that were 5-10 times as much as he was charging for his single vineyard Pinots at that time, but blind, the 30 tasters in the room picked his wines above the young great Burgundies. And maybe that's not fair because, these great Grand Crus need a little bit of time. You can't just pop them open and drink them like a Pepsi like you can these California wines. But, still it was an eye-opening experience. And it takes a lot of guts to open your wines against these wines that, are very expensive, very exclusive, and considered to be the world's greatest example of Pinot Noir. But over the years, these guys at Hartford Court have found some of the greatest vineyard sites throughout Sonoma, and they make, to me, some of the best Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and, yes, Zinfandel. I know I'm not a big Zinfandel fan, but these Zinfandels are very well balanced, and they've got a little sprinkling of other varietals in them, which, to me, adds a little depth and complexity and makes Zinfandel, even Zinfandel, interesting. All right, well, we started out with the Stone Coat Chardonnay, which today they make 22 different wines, and these single vineyard wines they make, I'm talking about, are all under 500 cases in production. Many of them are under 300 cases, so really tiny production. This wine actually comes from a few blocks within the Durrell Vineyard, and it's an uplifted riverbed, so you got river stones the size of grapefruits here, and you get this distinct minerality in this wine, this kind of a wet stone presence in the mid-palate, and that's what these single vineyard wines are all about. They've got to have a high personality fact trait in order for the folks at Hartford Court to turn them into a single vineyard bottling, and they watch these over the period of several years, and they'll say, okay, boom, that is Stone Coat. That is what this wine is all about. It is very distinct and different from these other vineyard sites. And this wine does have that wet stone and that distinct minerality to it. It's a little less California, more Burgundian. It's got a lovely hazelnut and smoke and white peach and nectarine fruit to it. Lovely structure in this 2010 vintage, a cooler year. Really lovely richness. You're not going to mistake this for Burgundy. I'm not saying that, blind tasting, this isn't California. It's still California. It still has lush peach and apricot fruit, but bright acidity on the finish and that distinct minerality showing. A little creme caramel, a little vanilla bean spice too. We like a little bit of that oak spice on our Chardonnay. Excellent juice. The Stone Coat Chardonnay 2010. 2011 Russian River, even though this is their entry level, I think this wine a little bigger maybe on the palate than the Stone Coat. It's a blend of 60-70%. They're estate vineyards. They do use some fruit for growers, even though you wouldn't think the Jackson family is going to need to buy fruit. These guys have got vineyards all over the world. But hey, if you've got good friends that are your neighbors that have great vineyard sites, and they've got grapes to sell, well, why not? Anyways, this is a hallmark example of Russian River Chardonnay. This wine contains fruit from 3 different subregions. The Middle Reach area, where you got wineries like Williams-Salem and Gary Farrell, and they've got the Ruid clone here, which is known for really highly floral tones in the wine, jasmine and honeysuckle. Then you got fruit from the Green Valley here, which gives more of a lemon drop, candy-like character. And then they pull fruit from Laguna Ridge, where you find wineries like Kistler and Dellinger. And yes, they actually buy some fruit from Dellinger, and that's a winery you can only get on the mailing list here. They've got some old Wente clones there, which got thick skins, 40-plus-year-old vines, which brings texture to the wine, some baked pear character. So this wine gets traits from all of these different areas, combines them, and creates what we would call a typical Russian River Chardonnay. Lovely candied ginger spice notes on the finish. And even this Russian River bottling, they only make about 3,000 cases. Excellent juice, the 2011 Russian River. All right, the Pinot Noir Russian River was up next, and the same approach for this. They want to give you a hallmark Russian River-style Pinot from both the state fruit and other great vineyards. This wine's got a lovely cherry berry fruit and earthy note, which you get from the Russian River, and a cola-type note, that textbook cola nuance, a light smoky nuance also in the nose. Really lovely, fresh cherry berry fruit on the tongue with silky smooth tannins. Lovely freshness and balance here, and a pretty floral and spice note coming through on the finish, along with that Cola. All right, the 2011 Fog Dance from Green Valley. This is the southwest corner of the Russian River, so it's a little cooler. The fog kind of dances in and out of this vineyard as the day goes on. And right across from Iron Horse, a westerly exposure, this vineyard's got a lovely dark cherry, black raspberry fruits, a lot of that apple pie baking spice also, and a really pronounced earthy character. And you get a blood orange citrus, which is really cool for a red wine, and lovely concentration of richness on the palate. You get an array of that spice and earth showing through that dark berry fruit, and really nice high tone, though, to this wine. Really nice freshness, even though it's got lovely richness of velvety, silky, smooth tannins here, and some blood orange citrus showing through on the finish as well. Lovely complexity in this wine. Most excellent juice. Then the Far Coast, which is actually out on the true Sonoma coast. There are not a lot of vineyards out there. This is a very cold area, really extreme growing conditions, 900 to 1,000 foot elevation, uplifted sea beds. You see some sea shells, oyster shells, which adds minerality to the wine here. Really fine grained tannins, lovely spice, cocoa dust, coffee, and mocha, along with a lot of dark cherry fruit here. Really intense bouquet, lots of dark color in this wine too. You almost think that they put Syrah in it, but it's 100% Pinot. They don't blend any Syrah at Hartford Courts. And lovely earthy notes, really meaty style of Pinot Noir here on the tongue, with some tannin showing through on the finish, and a lot of that spice and nuance of cocoa and mocha, and juicy dark berry fruit. Really long and layered, most excellent juice. This one just edged out the first Pinot just a little bit, but both of them really top level Pinot Noir. And hey, here come the Zinfandels. So if you're watching this show, no, I'm not a huge Zinfandel fan, but like I said, these are 100-year-old vines, and they have a little sprinkling of Carignan, Petit Syrah, Alicante Bouschet mixed in. That's how they used to plant the vineyards, the old Italians back in the day. They wanted a little spice in their Zinfandel, so they added some other varietals. These wines have incredible balance. No raisin or prune fruit to them, more blackberry and black cherry notes, white pepper spice, some fennel. Really nice complexity here on the nose. And some of these grapes from a vineyard in Dom's backyard. He bought this old rundown house when he first was getting started, and it had a beautiful old vine Zinfandel vineyard right behind it. So they also steal barrels from their single vineyard wines to throw in there. Really juicy fruit on the tongue. We're here with an array of that spice and nuance from the nose on the finish, with really lovely freshness and spice. Excellent juice, the 2012 Old Vines Russian River. And then we had one of the single vineyards, the Finucane Wood Road Ravenswood used to make one of these. You don't see any of these old vine bottlings from Ravenswood anymore. A lot of people have picked up these vineyard sites from them, and they're pretty much just making grocery store wine in Ravenswood now. That entry-level wines they do. These old vine wines, I mean, you can't make a lot of them. These old vines do not produce a lot of fruit. A lot of the big producers are just not interested in them. But a very famous vineyard site that's 100-plus years old, a little heavier on the Petit Syrah in this year, but a little bit of funk in the nose in this wine, too. Some sweet tobacco spice, some brambly earth notes, but lovely balance also. Really lovely dark berry fruits, some floral notes and spice. Really bright and fruity on the palate with intense blackberry fruit, but nice balance in this wine also. Even though it's big, it's not 17% alcohol. It's only like 14.5, so lovely balance and a mouth-watering finish. Most excellent juice, one of the best Zinfandels that I have had this year. That's what we had to drink with our friend Don Hartford. I'm your host, Andrew Lampasoni, signing off for the Wine Watch, saying remember, always drink the good stuff first.